Welcome again. My name is Amit Thusu, and I am the moderator for today's session. So we have the full agenda before us. It was publicly available. So let me quickly tell you the purpose of this meeting is that GCC program has come up with a new regulatory framework. We call it GCC 2.0. Is a next generation regulatory framework combining all the requirements for Article 6.2, requirements for ICVCM, requirements for CORSIA first phase, and other requirements as well. So we're going to brief you on these, what these are. We also published number of documents for stakeholder consultation for 15 days. So the documents are being continuously being updated, and right now about 7 to 8 documents have been already published and are publicly available on our website for you to make comments. So without spending some more time on this, let me quickly introduce our panelists today. So first we have Hemant Nandanpawar with us, who is Senior Director at Global Carbon Council. We have Prakash, who is the Director at Global Carbon Council. We have Subhendu Biswas, who is also the Director at Global Carbon Council, and we have Mayank. Mayank Jain is also working as a manager with Global Carbon Council. So let me now, first of all, request all of you,
Hello.
to hello. Yeah, please mute your microphones. Okay. So let me tell you how this will work. How this is going to work. So we're going to have 5 presentations followed with question and answer session. So let me first invite Hemant. Hemant, please, share your presentation. So Hemant is going to talk about the purpose of this consultation and purpose of this exercise. Hemant, you have the floor.
Thank you, Amit. So as Amit mentioned, this is I will just briefly go through what is the purpose of this consultation. We are going through we are in the transition from GCC 1 to GCC 2, and the basic purpose, as he mentioned, that to cater to the various new requirements, to add to the new facilities, and to capture the new business opportunities coming in the carbon market, including the ITMOs, Article 6.2 credits, ICROA, then the CORSIA and the ICVCM things. So just as you know, as you are aware about the GCC version 1, that specifically we will be discussing this consultation, or you can say the update webinar is about the GCC regulatory framework. So it was connected to the IT integration, and to take care of all the things, the main things which are mentioned in this slide, that is about the GCC regulatory framework version 2. It will cover the additional renewable energy credits. This will be the additional facility of under the GCC. Then the CCS will be there, carbon capture and storage. Then the nature-based solutions will be added. Then the CORSIA credits, ICVCM. Then the related regulatory requirements related to the Article 6.2 and the overall IT integration with the new
Article
portal.
6.4 6.4.
The question answers we will take out at the end. Let me complete the presentation, and you can send on the also, and the chat also, and then we can have in the last we will have the question answer session. So going to the next one, the GCC program will offer GCC version 2 will offer a single window opportunity for the carbon market players to contribute to the climate change mitigation and sustainability, while ensuring the integrity, independence, objectivity, and the transparency. This has been developed based on international best practices, based on our experience gained in the development, implementation, and the operation of the various programs, initiatives, and the integrating and including these requirements in its design. Yes, so as I was mentioning, the GCC program, the version 2 will offer a single window opportunity for carbon market players to contribute to the climate change mitigation and sustainability while ensuring integrity, independence, objectivity, and the transparency. And this will be based on the practical best practices, then the experience gained through the development, implementation, the operation of the various programs, initiatives, and integrating it, including these, mainly it includes the clean development mechanism, sustainability and safeguards, then the concept of no net harm to environment and society, then UN SDGs, CORSIA eligible units, and the carbon offset credit integrity assessment criteria pilot and the first way, CORSIA that is, then ICRUA principles, then the ICVCM requirements as and then the major one is the Article 6.2 and the GCC operations of the last 3. Then next, please. It is cutting. Sorry. Yeah. The work, the plan and the implementation. The work on the this slide will show how we are transitioning through the GCC 2. The work on the preparation of the regulatory documents for GCC version 2 is in full swing, and there is really a challenging task, and our team, the many uncertainties and the unclarities in the Article 6 and ICVCMs are there, but we are trying to, as of now, based on the available knowledge and the available information, we are going ahead with that. Then noting that this is a huge Herculean task and will improve the preparation of the total 85 documents have been, that means the new and the existing revision of the existing documents. It includes the total documents of 85 documents. Out of which the 47 are new and the 38 are the revised documents. The total 28 substantive documents and TERA have been placed on the agenda of this meeting for consultation. 4 have been already received. The comments from our regulatory committee, it was discussed with the regulatory committee and we have finalized that. Then the rest of the 57 documents are the templates, format, etc., which will be finalized by GCC operation teams based on the GCC regulatory approval of the substantive documents. Apart from this new IT system, the GCC project portal is under advanced development for the implementation of the GCC 2, and the transaction registry operated by S&P Global is already developed as per the CORSIA and Article 6.2 requirements. So it will take care of both the major requirements. The rest of the infrastructure like governance structure, verifiers, GCC operations team will continue to support this new initiative. Next, please. Now, these are the, you can say these are the major documents for the public consultation, which includes the new documents and some of the existing documents. The red one are the existing ones. So the project standard, then the project development methodologies, then the validation and verification standards. These are the revised ones, the version 4. And that will be taken care into the public consultation and the public stakeholder consultation. The red one will not be taken into the consultation because there is very minor changes in that. So most of the documents, as I mentioned, that from the project standard to the methodologies and the procedures of GCC verifiers are included. We will, in the next presentations, my colleagues will take you through all these what are the new changes in those documents.
Can you please speed up a bit?
Yeah, sure. Next, please. So this is the timeline. This is, I think, my last slide of this presentation. So it will, in the brief, you can see that we have started this work on the 22nd August by submitting these regulatory reform documents to our regulatory committee. Then the meeting happened of the regulatory committee of our global experts here in Doha on 3rd and 4th September. Then continuing the preparation of then the stakeholder consultation during the 15 days of that 11 to 28 September. Then now the next plan is to have after this webinar of 16th September, we will on the 3rd October, the operations team will consider the comments from RC and finalize the documents. And then by the end of the October, the training to the project owners will be done, and the training to the VVVs will be done. Before that, we will on the around the 27th of the October, we will publish the final approved documents on our website, and it will be available to you. Next one. This is the just you can see that these are our documents are available on this website, our website, and then you can anytime visit the website and check the documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemant, for this quick presentation. Let me quickly turn to the next presentation. So I'll be presenting on this brief on GCC 2.0. I'm sharing my slides now. So let me quickly go to this. So this is how our standard currently looks like. We have the standard workflow called Projects Portal and the registry operated by S&P Global, to which we are connected also to Singapore registry, also to S&P Global Meta Registry and Carbon Action Data Trust. So this is what will happen. We'll have new projects, types of projects like CCS and FLU projects that will also be considered in this whole process, apart from other projects that we currently have. So this will complete all the 16 sectoral scopes for all the projects. Then outcome from this obviously will be approved carbon credits coming out, but we have also included an additional element for initial certification called as EREC, which is an additional renewable energy electricity certificate. So there will be an option for renewable energy projects to either request for issuance of ACCs or request for issuance of ERECs based on the preference or based on the market conditions that they have. This is going to provide more flexibility to the project owners in choosing the way they want the outcome of their projects to be. Okay, so we are going also in this new GCC 2.0, will include the requirements of Article 6.2, but also enable the application of Article 6.4 methodologies, which are currently under development by the supervisory body for Article 6.4 under UNFCCC. But whenever they are available, this can be included. Or this can be applied to your projects. We're also having, including requirements for specific countries. For example, Singapore has our requirements. We have enabled those requirements in our registry. There could be, other countries that are which we are talking to currently. There could be additional requirements on the top of those requirements that can also come up in the future. So for ICVCM, we're currently applying for those requirements in next, I would say, 15 days or by the end of this month. So we already have, provided the ICVCM standard, which provides which we have compiled all the requirements of ICVCM. And since you know that ICVCM is based on, the fundamental base requirement is based on CORSIA, and so those programs which already have CORSIA has already met a lot of requirements, and there will be additional requirements which we have already reflected in this standard. Apart from this, we will also connect to national registries. We're talking to some of the exchanges like CTI and other exchanges and other emerging interfaces. So this summarizes, what GCC 2.0 looks like. Let me also provide you a little bit of overview on the certification labels and the market eligibility labels. Now, as a consequence of GCC 2.0, there will be an additional element for EREC, as I already explained. We have already included nature-based solutions, so there will be two new labels that will come up, like called as NR label and NR plus label. NR label is the basic label, and NR plus is an enhanced label. We're going to talk about it in future. We also have TR label, which is a technological removal label, particularly for the CCS projects. For E, you already know that we had an E plus label, which was an environmental no net harm label. So we have modified that those particular element into a new label called as EL label and EBL label. EL label is is a label with regard to environmental impacts that are environmental no harm, limited to the environmental legislations. And if you go beyond environmental legislation, then EBL label can be awarded. Similarly, for SL and SBL label is an S plus label, has been changed now to SL and SBL label. And finally, we have SDG label. You can see. So this standard also undergone changes a bit. I think our next speakers are going to talk more details about it. But I think the point here is this, that we have now voluntary carbon market, market eligibility label. We have CORSIA, and under CORSIA we have pilot phase and we have first phase. Accordingly, we have CA plus label that reflects compliance with the requirements of Article 6.2 under the Paris Agreement, and we have the CCP plus label that reflects the compliance requirements under the ICVCM. I'll not go in the details of this, but I think this diagram and this table is also reflected in the project standard. I would request you to look at those in details to identify what labels are necessary under and how those are categorized. Then we look at, on the right hand side, we look at towards the new other requirements as a consequence of Article 6.2 and as a consequence of CORSIA first phase requirements. They fall into the additional requirement of host country letter of authorization, as you all know. And we also this host country letter of authorization is a requirement at issuance as per our procedures for both CORSIA first phase as well as the Article 6.2 CA plus label. However, we are aware, right now, the infrastructure for issuance of those letters on HCLOA is currently under the process currently, being applied by the countries, and we understand there are barriers, and as a consequence of this, we have tried to kind of have another document called as letter of intent from the host country. So letter of authorization for the host country, as per our standard on double counting, requires host countries to comply with a lot of other requirements like ratifying Paris Agreement and developing their policy and framework under the Article 6.2 and 6.4, and also reflecting how the countries intend to achieve their NDCs and so on and so forth. So in that context, many countries are not yet ready. So therefore, there might be a barrier for them to issue a letter of authorization. So therefore, we have invented this new intermediate letter. You can say is a letter of intent. We're looking at those countries which which can at least provide a letter of intent confirming that they have met the basic requirements. They're the process of the regulatory framework or the MRV that's required for accounting for the corresponding adjustments is under process or is advanced development. That's why we have this letter of intent, and this letter of intent would be required at registration stage. However, if letter of authorization is provided at the registration stage, letter of intent is not required. So this applies to both C plus CORSIA plus first phase label as well as CA plus label. Also, with regard to the application of corresponding adjustments based on CORSIA requirements, we have provided two options for application of corresponding adjustment. There were option 1 and option 2. Option 1 essentially allows GCC program to issue CORSIA first phase and CA plus label ACCs. However, those after issuance, those accounts of the project owner as well as the buyer would be blocked, which means that those credits cannot enter into market. However, they can be issued. So this has been done so that to ensure the continuity of carbon markets in view of the situation that many countries are not yet ready to issue letter of authorizations. Option 2 is another approach in which buffer approach has been taken. So a buffer of 15% would be deducted from the emission reductions, potential emission reductions, and remaining ones would be issued to the project owner. The buffer reduction is called corresponding adjustment, reserve account. And those 15% deductions would remain in a pooled, you can say pooled buffer account, kind of a buffer account. And this would be required in case the host country or host country, in case the host countries do not apply corresponding adjustment within 3 years of the date of issuance. So this is kind of a safeguard for ensuring corresponding adjustments, but also there are other requirements on ensuring the verification of corresponding adjustment by the third-party verifiers to be done within 3 years of the issuance. One thing I just wanted to also touch upon is that in case for option 2, in case where there is a buffer deduction, for those projects and for those monitoring periods, the ACCs would be issued, which means that they can be traded, they can be they can exchange hands here and there between the buyers and sellers. However, they have 3 years to demonstrate the application of corresponding adjustment. This is a requirement for project owners to ensure the host countries do reflect those ACCs and apply corresponding adjustment for those ACCs, for those projects for which they have issued host country letter of authorization, where they clearly mention whether it's to be used for NDC purpose or to be used for CORSIA or other purposes, for example. Okay, let me move to the next slide now. Okay, so the process is similar to the previous process that GCC had and is a typical, very standardized process. However, there are new elements that have been included. For example, the host country letter of intent and so corresponding adjustment, and also the recovery procedures in case the corresponding adjustment is not applied. So what this means as at this, I'm going to talk about this in the next slide, but I think now I would like to focus on that. For under the GCC 2.0, the project at a minimum is required to reduce greenhouse gases and also required to ensure that those projects do not cause any harm to environment and society. So this has been made mandatory now. Environmental harm has demonstration, and that project doesn't have environmental harm has been made mandatory, and so therefore E, L, and SL labels are necessary for issuance of any credits in GCC 2.0. Whereas the others are an optional, other labels are optional. The project owner can actually choose if they want to go ahead with that. So let me look at the registration. I will just focus on the red, outline, in this figure. So the first step is based for the project owner is to find out what labels are necessary for the project owner to actually, apply in the project. The project might be interested in edX. The project might be interested in EL, EBL, depending on the jurisdiction in which to which the project developer or project owner wishes to supply ACCs with those labels at a later point in time. And also the prior consideration requirement has also been included. So I think at the design stage, the project owner should actually look upon all those parameters and look upon all those things to move ahead. Then they can choose to apply the GCC or CDM or Article 6.4 methodology whenever available. And in the PSF at registration stage, the project owners need to define the process for letter of intent, letter of host country, letter of authorization, which approach for corresponding adjustments have to be applied in future at issuance and after issuance. I think all this information has to be reflected in the project submission form. And then the other change is that the global stakeholder consultation will be done for 30 days instead of 15 days as done earlier. The rest of the process looks similar, and therefore once the project gets registered, it will be publicly reflected on the public website. Okay, and then going to the issuance step, I think there are a few changes here in the issuance step. First of all, the global stakeholder consultation has been introduced at the first verification. This has been done to make it in line with Article 6.4 requirements that have already been released and approved by the by the Article 6.4 subsidiary body. At issuance, there's a need to submit host country letter of authorization in case the project developers wish to apply for CORSIA first phase, and in case they want to apply for the Article 6.2 label, CA label. And in case they want to apply for CCP label, in CCP label there are some options. The application of host country letter and application of corresponding adjustment has been kept optional. So it's an option for you, but in case you decide, then you will have to fill this information and submit. So the verification by the verifier will continue like this, and then once the steering committee decides, then after that the credits will be issued as per option 1 or 2 of approach for corresponding adjustment. And the other process that we have on the right hand side is for process for verification of corresponding adjustment and recovery of double counted ACCs, particularly for those projects which apply for corresponding adjustment using approach 2, which is the buffer approach. So I'm going to talk about this in my next slide, I think. Yes. So now the project cycle, instead of two stages like registration stage and issuance stage, has 4 stages now: registration, issuance, corresponding adjustment phase, and recovery phase. So once the credits are issued, I think in case the corresponding adjustment has not been applied, the projects will not be labeled as that the corresponding adjustment have been verified for those particular cases, and accordingly this status will be publicly available, and as a consequence the market will accordingly have a different price for those kind of projects. In case the corresponding adjustment is not applied within 3 years, the GCC program will start the recovery process of for claiming back those ACCs for which the corresponding adjustment had to be applied but was not applied by the host country, and project owners failed to provide this information within 3 years. So there's a full process and procedure on this. I will not go into that procedure. I would encourage you to refer to the procedure on double counting, standard for double counting, for eligibility of standard for double counting. Yeah, I think it's publicly available. You can refer to that and you will come to know about it. Okay, on this slide, I just want to touch upon, since I talked about buffer reduction for corresponding adjustment and so on and so forth, there are other deductions that will also occur. For example, there would be adaptation SOP for ICVCM cases. There would be country SOP reduction for those projects for which the host country want to have some share of proceeds for the credits, but it will be case-to-case basis depending on the host country contents of the host country letter. There would be also some deductions, perhaps in case there's an excess issuance during the previous monitoring period that can be adjusted in the future periods. Okay, so this reflects, this shows you our registry, S&P Global Registry, which is fully compliant with Article 6.2, which is fully compliant with CORSIA first phase, and whatever I presented with regard to the corresponding adjustment and reflecting the status of verification of corresponding adjustment, fully compliant as of today. And this is what was also presented to the CORSIA. TAB, we had a couple of weeks back, we had a meeting with the TAB of CORSIA. They were reviewing our application on, I think they're going to decide on this. But it seems like, this whole approach and process is acceptable to them. So, but we'll have to wait for the final approval. Okay, so let me give you an example of a project in Turkey which is registered with GCC with option 2 for the application of corresponding adjustment. Let's say 10% buffer, but in the procedures is about 15%, and they is registered with C+ first phase and indicative label, and they such projects want to start the ACC issuance process. So how does verification of corresponding adjustment work in this process? So you can see, the whole timeline with CORSIA pilot phase, first phase, second phase, and so on and so forth. let's say for the first monitoring period, emission reductions are about 2,000, and corresponding adjustment reserve account reduction of 10% would reflect 200. So remaining ACCs would be about 1,800. A monitoring report is submitted after the end of the monitoring period. Let's say, for example, the verification report is finalized by the verifier, and 1,800 ACCs, let's say, is assumed that are issued by the steering committee. From that day, the project owner has 3 years for providing proof of application of corresponding adjustment by the host countries by reflecting those issued ACCs within their national reports, or BTR, whatever is available at that point in time. And once they do so, let's just say the transfer happens, because those credits can be transferred and transferred to Singapore Airlines in Singapore. So there's an international transfer from Turkey to Singapore of the 500 ACCs which are compliant to CORSIA first phase. So this date we called as first transfer date, because it's an international transfer as per the Article 6.2 requirements. And let's assume that the initial report was submitted to the UNFC under the CARP process, and it lists down, the verifier is able to identify the serial number of all those projects, all those credits, 500 ACCs that are issued to this. They are going to provide a verification report and submit it again to the GCC, after which we will update the status on the registry to corresponding adjustment verified. So this is a very price signal for the market, for the buyers to price those credits accordingly, because these credits will be of the highest level of integrity, and therefore possibly they will carry the highest price of the market. Okay, so this is now, I think perhaps I'm moving towards my last few slides, but I think I just want to touch upon the CORSIA approval. So as I said, we have applied for CORSIA. We expect approval by November, early November, I would say, just before the COP. The TAB report should come somewhere in September, towards maybe next couple of weeks, and ICAO's 233rd Council meeting would happen somewhere in the first week of November, where this whole information should be made public on whether or not GCC has been approved for the first phase of CORSIA. So please, I would request you to please keep track of this, and we'll also announce it in the public domain. Okay, now two slides on summarizing what are the changes that happened in GCC 2.0. The first thing I would like to talk about on the new project types and IT platforms. As I said, CCS projects and FLO projects have been introduced into this new GCC 2.0 regulatory documents, and therefore CCC projects are classified as Type D, and FLO projects or nature-based solution projects are classified as Type C. We have a new projects portal, which we are currently working on. It's a fully integrated portal that will have registration, issuance, post-registration changes, requests for deviations from methodologies, but also renewal operating period fully integrated into this functionality. So it will be completely an end-to-end platform. So we also have current S&P Global transaction registry fully integrated and up and running as of now. I showed you one of the slides on those. Just want to quickly check on if you are able to hear me, because I can't really get that message.
Yeah, it's okay.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Okay, excellent, good. So we have also new labels, as I talked about. I will not repeat those, but I think you know that I had one slide on the new labels that have been introduced. We also have a new processes. For example, I would like to talk about 3 of those. So there will be a limit on the number of opportunities for project owner or verifier to provide responses. So this will be limited to 3 occurrences, after which the request for review would be triggered. That will be the 4th one, and therefore at that point in time, the project developers and verifiers have to provide full information on the project, after which the steering committee will accordingly make a final decision on whether or not the project will be registered or not registered, or issued or not issued. So I think this is very important, and this brings the timeline into this whole process. We have been receiving complaints from different stakeholders at different points in time that there is no timeline on the process. The verifiers are taking too long, or project developers are taking too long, and everybody is taking too long. So just to bring that predictability into the whole process. As I said, also global stakeholder consultation will be done at two stages prior to initial submission, at the registration stage and at the first verification. There's also a process for addressing and rectifying erroneous issuance of the ACCs or RX if they occur. Then there are some concepts which are not new in the carbon markets, but somehow were not there in the GCC program. For example, demonstration of prior consideration of the ACCs is a new element that has been added up. Debundling and bundling were existing in, they were existed in the clarifications that we had issued. They have been consolidated in those in the documents that we have under the GCC 2.0. There's a revised approach for SDG. There's a revised approach for no harm to environment. So we have shifted from no net harm to no harm, which means the process has been made a little more robust. And then we also have deviation from the methodologies, post-registration change processes, renewal of crediting period, and other requirements pertaining to Article 6.2 and COSIA that I talked about in my previous slides, particularly on the host country letter of authorization requirements, on the timing or on withdrawal or revoking, what will be the consequences and so on and so forth, and also on requirements for application of corresponding adjustment by countries and the recovery process of the ACC in case the corresponding adjustment has not been applied within 3 years of the issuance. We also have ICVCM requirements, particularly additional requirements related to first prior informed consent processes that has been introduced by ICVCM, and benefit sharing processes that project developers need to share and to propose in their PSFs that with regard to what extent they want to share the benefits with the ICs or with the communities. We have also introduced new grievance and appeals process, which provides opportunity for project developers or verifiers to appeal against the decisions made by the steering committee on registration, issuance, post-registration changes, as well as renewal of crediting period. And there's also a grievance process in case the stakeholders, particularly the indigenous communities, want to raise concerns with regard to the impacts, environmental or social impacts or other impacts that are that come as a consequence of the implementation of the project activity. Of course, we have CCP label. We also have uncertainty tool that would be released, I would say, in few weeks. So this requirement is coming from ICVCM. They want uncertainty analysis on the baseline scenario. They want uncertainty analysis on each and every parameter that needs to be monitored, and an uncertainty number to be determined that will be applied to the calculations of the emission reductions. Okay, so one last thing now is that we have an enabled tagging of CCP labels to issued ACCs, which can happen retroactively. For example, there are projects. Let's say, for example, renewable energy projects have been not approved by ICVCM at this point in time. However, they have said that new methodologies can come up. So we believe that we're going to submit some methodologies to the ICVCM, and in case the ICVCM approves it, then we allow opportunity for project owners to apply that CCP label retroactively to the projects that have already issued ACCs, but have not transferred those ACCs to any buyer. So therefore, in case they want to do it, they will have to cancel those issued ACCs and provide that evidence, undergo post-registration change in project design prior to approval as per the prior approval track, and then they can submit, submit the request for reissuance of the ACCs for the same monitoring period with the new CCP labels. That is it, and I would like to thank you for this. Thank you very much. I hope I got some time. I took a little longer, but I think this was a bigger presentation. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Now with this, I would like to invite Subhendu. Subhendu, you have the floor. Can you please, share your presentation?
Now, okay, life has been easy now because Amit has covered more or less the full part of this, but then I'll just rush you through the changes which is therein. So what are we talking of? We're talking of GCC 2.0, and what are those documents which are effective for GCC 2.0? They include the project standard, the program process, the new environmental and social safeguard standard, the sustainability standard, the standard on the development of methodology, the validation and the verification standard, the standard on ICVC 6.2, the new procedure for approval of verifiers, and there are a horde of forms and templates which are there along with 2.0. Okay, so if you actually go to our Global Global Carbon Council website, under regulatory documents, under public consultation 2.0, you'll be able to see all these documents therein with the period in which you can send in your inputs. We'll encourage everyone, please go through the contents of the documents and send in your inputs, if any, before the due date, so that we can consider them and then we can get the regulatory committee approval prior to making it public. So first starts with the project standard. So what is the bill? I'll just highlight the, I can't go into the depth of the standard, but then I'll just give you an overview of what has changed between 1.0 to 2.0. So 1.0, we only had the project types of A1, A2, B1, and B2. So now with the inclusion of NBS and CCS TR track, we now have A1, A2, A3. A3 is actually an inclusion of a clarification note that we had given for a new category. And now we have C and D. So now we have included the new tracks of NBS and TR into the fold of GCC 2.0. We used to have a fixed waiting period of 10 years under 1.0. Now we have migrated to having a mix of fixed waiting period for certain project categories and renewable waiting period of 5 into 3, a total of 15 years for A1 and A3. We also have a different set of renewable waiting period for NBS track. It can be anything between 15, 20 years to 30 years up to a maximum of 100 years. There are a new requirement on local stakeholder consultation. Previously, the requirement was it has to be conducted before submission to GCC. Now it's aligned with 6.4 that it has to be done prior to the initial start of the project activity, which is the date of investment or the submission to GCC, whichever is earlier. When it comes to environmental and social safeguards, Amit had already said that we now moved away from E plus S plus to a split between mandatory requirements, that is requirement to fulfill as per the legal requirement of the land where the project is. So there are EL and SL, and there is a voluntary label of EBL, SBL, which is beyond legal. So you can also go for the higher level of demonstration of environmental no harm or social no harm. Mayank will deal with it in a little detail later on. The market was applied for previously could be CORSIA. Now, if you want to move to the first phase, now we have got to split between pilot and first phase. You want to move to 6.2, you want to move to CCP, then it has to migrate to GCC 2.0. Global stakeholder consultation initially was once at the time of initial submission to GCC. Now there are two rounds of global stakeholder consultation, one at the time of validation and once in the issuance process. The first issuance, you do a GSC. You can see that in all that we are discussing now, there is a change between the word project verification and emission reduction verification between 1.0. We now have aligned it to validation and verification in 2.0. What has changed in the program process? What has changed is we did not have a prior consideration form at 1.0. Now we have come up with a prior consideration form in 2.0. It is the starting point of getting a project onboarded under 2.0. That's the first step. GSC, I've already said. So how would 2.0 function? 2.0 is completely on a new GCC portal with all forms in dynamic nature, in soft forms. So this is the sole provision of how 2.0 will happen in future. Now we have, as Amit said, we now have a limit to number of iterations a project can go through. So we have 3 iterations in the new program process of 2.0 with a review at the end of it. At the end of these 4 phases, it would get decided whether it's going to get registered or not registered. We have now have provision of the host country approving the project if it asks so as a part of the HCLOA or their NDC or whatever it is. We have enabled that part of it. We have now made provisions for a request for review phase after the detailed assessment stage. We have now have clear timelines of when GCC is going to process a project, how much timeline for the verifier to come back on the request issuance, the issues which get raised. So each of these detailed assessment phase, whether it's DA1, DA2, DA3, have definitive timelines in which response has to come or we have to process each of these projects. There is now provisions and a mandatory requirement of uploading project site pictures and videos as a part of the validation process and as a part of the verification. This is to bring confidence to the market with respect to project about what is there on site and all. There's specific guidance on what the picture should be about and the video. Now again, there's a change in terminology. Also, 2.0 program process allows for post-registration change, allows for change in focal point and LOA, which allows for renewal of creating period. It allows for addressing erroneous issuances of credits in some verification process. It allows for transaction registry. So if you see the departure between 1.0 and 2.0 is also that we used to have validation function on GCC portal and the verification function on our transaction registry. Now, the validation as well as the verification would be on our portal. Only the transaction registry will be with respect to issuance and transfers and retirements of credits. We have a separate module for methodologies because there are new requirements on when and how new methodologies can be applied for, how clarifications can be sought, how review can be sought on methodologies. And we are also having a reporting framework on transparency and information because there's a lot of reporting that needs to be done to different agencies from our platform. So that is inbuilt into a new portal. What are the other things that we have in 2.0? We can now split credits among 3 entities as focal point 2 as per the letter of authorization. There's been a change. So you can split credits between at the most 3 entities. We have provisions for you, including e-signatures for letter of authorizations. We have introduced host country accounts for them. We have now incorporated the possibility of integrating DMRV into our portal. We are now having a verifier and an expert management system. We have updates on project status by the verifiers at different point in time. We have integration of our accounting software so that you readily get invoices, you can pay, it can get reconciled, you can even pay a part of the fee on the portal itself. There's provisions for clarifications, revisions of methodology, bottoms-up submission of methodologies, and there is a set of deductible tables during registration and issuances taking care of buffers and non-permanence issues and all. So these in a nutshell is change in program process. What are the key changes in VVS and approval of verifiers is now verifiers are now called VVVs because now we have validation and verification. So we have validation and verification bodies. In addition to validation and verification, we have new scopes like PRCs, renewal of rating period, and all. We also have eligibility criteria is defined newly. We have also defined criteria of when the on-site assessment would be carried out. There now we have the reapproval cycle changed from 2 years to a 3 years frequency. VVV performance would be monitored using an performance index, which is a very exhaustive one. So it would be done for each project. If the VVV performance changes, there are different flags that get raised and the VVVs are made aware that the performance is improving or is not going up. There are spot checks are now linked with these VPIs, there's performance indexes. It may include as visit to the central office of an outsourced entity or even at a project site. We now have clear competence guidelines set out for NBS, the new track type which has come in for CCS and NBS. There are other changes like obviously it was only regular track that we had under 1.0. Now we have the NBS track, we have the TR track, there's a CCS track near in. We are now having post-registration changes, renewal of creating periods. We have new mandatory labels like ELSL. Now we have the voluntary labels like EL, BL, SDGs, core share, pilot phase, CA+, CCP labels, and AD+. AD+ is a new label against adaptation fund, which is a part of the ICVCM. We have creating periods which are different, and we have a different set of standards that needs to be looked into when someone actually applies for the project activity. What are the key changes on the methodology front? We only had a top-down approach of methodologies. Now we'll have a top-down as well as bottoms-up approach for methodology, so you can propose methodologies. We have now brought in tools. The new scope also has tools into the methodology. We had reductions. Now we'll have removals as a part of the 2.0. We have removed the references to regional positive list from the additionality section. We have provided further guidance on how to consider national and sectoral policies. We have a lot of talk on baseline scenarios. So now we have modalities and procedures for the NBS track projects. We have considerations of national baselines and sectoral baselines. We have more clarity on remaining lifetime of baseline equipment. We have now enabled submission of new projects using the new methodologies and the bottoms-up approach. Now, anyone can seek clarifications on GCC methodology or tools, or even CDM methodology and tools, and there's a way of how we're going to treat it. They can request revisions to it, and there's a way of how we're going to treat it with timelines. And now there's a provision of review methodology and tool based on market feedback and stakeholder input. So even GCC voluntarily can decide to take up on review methodologies and tools if there is and market impact, feedback, or stakeholders come back with inputs on the same. And finally, I would say that the whole thing would be done on a new web portal, and the new portal would have a registration module that would take you through the registration process, an issuance module that would take through the issuance process, and finally the output of the issuance would go to the transaction registry, a PRC module that would handle all post-registration changes, a RCP module that would take care of renewal of creating period, a methodology module will take care of all with respect to new methodology submissions, clarifications, requests, and everything. There would be a VVV and expert management module, which would track the performance of VVVs and experts. There would also be a module on stakeholder engagement. So any stakeholder in our domain can approach GCC with their comments, queries, and all, which will be taken care by the stakeholder engagement module. So this one is a completely revamped portal of ours, which would make GCC 2.0 enabled. So I'll take questions at the end. So I just want to run you through all the changes that's coming under 2.0. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Subhendu, for this quite comprehensive presentation. So I would now request Mayank Jain, Mayank, to update us on new requirements on E+ or new labels on environmental environmental harm, not to occur for project, but also for S+, which used to occur earlier. But Mayank, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Anand, can you please share my presentation? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So hello, everyone. I will be providing updates on the new versions of the environmental and social safeguard standard and project sustainability standard. So before I delve into what updates we have made, let me briefly talk about the purpose of having this presentation in the first place. So in this presentation, we won't be delving into technical details comprehensively, but the whole purpose of having this presentation is to bring you at a level playing field wherein you understand, give you a basic understanding of what changes has taken place into the previous versions, so that when you review these new standards, you have a basic knowledge of the new terminologies and the approaches that is being introduced, which gives you a better opportunity to provide your feedback on these standards which are available for public consultation. Environmental social safeguard standard is not yet available for public consultation. It will be published sometime this week, but the project sustainability standard is already available for public consultation. So let's start with the environmental and social safeguards standard. Why did we update it in the first place? So we updated environmental social safeguard standard to align it with the leading international standards on project level environmental and social performance assessment. And these standards include the classic one, which is referred very thoroughly across all sectors as the performance standard from IFC. Then there are environmental assessment guidelines from Asian Development Bank. There are specific environmental and social risk assessment tools published by DNB and other entities. So, and we now have Article 6.4 Sustainable Development Tool in the draft version, though. So these are different tools which have come on or which were already there. The guidance from these tools is being incorporated in the latest version of the environmental and social safeguard standard of GCC. There are also new guidelines coming in from ICVCM and Article 6.4. So we try best to align the GCC standard with the new knowledge and thinking that has come in the carbon sector from other standards such as ICVCM and Article 6.4. And also, lastly, there are a lot of feedback that we have received from different stakeholders. The stakeholders could be verifiers or the project owners. There could be internal stakeholders such as team members from GCC operations or regulatory committee members, providing in their feedback as in how the standard can be updated and improved. And you also remember that the requirements on environmental and social standards were sort of scattered into 2-3 different documents, including the standard, the previous version, but also some of the guidelines were in the clarification 01 and other clarifications. So in version 4 or the latest version of the standard, we have incorporated all these requirements in one place. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the changes that has happened in the new standard compared to the old version? So the old version or the existing version is version 3.0. The new version that we have published is called version 4.0. So the first one is on the scope. The previous version of 3.0 of the environmental and social standard was limited to sectoral scope 1 to 13. But in the new project standard in GCC 2.0, now we have 2 more sectors included. So one is the CCS, which is sector scope 13, and there are also sector 14 and 15 related to afforestation, reforestation, and agriculture. There will be a separate new standard for AFLU projects at GCC. So the environmental and social standard that we are talking here in this call applies to scopes 1 to 13 and sector scope 13, which is related to CCS. In terms of market eligibility, since as Amit and Subhendu talked about that in GCC 2.0, we have got provisions for project owners to develop their project activity under Article 6.2 or get CCP plus label by applying project under ICVCM standard, and hence the scope of this standard is expanded to include all 3, CORSIA, Article 6.2 and ICVCM as well. There is another track which we refer to as VCM, which is the voluntary market track, wherein if the project owners are not interested in getting any market eligibility criteria, but only want to get voluntary credits from GCC, this standard applies there as well. In terms of approach, there has been a bit of deviation from what we were doing in the previous standard. So in the previous standard, particularly the project owners and the verifiers can relate to, we were asking you to assess both the positive and negative impacts. Whereas in version 4 of the standard, we have turned towards more risk. We have taken a more risk-centric approach, wherein we are not asking you to assess the positive impact within the environmental and social safeguard standard. We are only asking you to consider the risks or the hazards or the negative impacts that can result from the project activities. So which means the positive impacts goes out when you analyze the environmental and social risks under this standard. In terms of impact assessment approach, so it's more or less the same, wherein you start with identifying the environmental risks or hazards, which we commonly referred as aspects. You try to see what are the levels of negative impacts that project activity is likely to generate or will generate exposed. What are the legal laws and regulations around these environmental and social aspects? If it crosses the legal limit, then it's harmful. If it doesn't cross the legal limit, it's harmless. If it crosses the legal limits, what are the mitigation measures that you're putting in place which makes this aspect harmless? And then based on the harmless or harmful, you give it a score, and then you calculate overall whether project activity causes harm to the environment, to the society or not. So in terms of approach, it's more or less remain the same, but in this version, you have to only consider the negative aspects. In terms of labels, I think this was discussed thoroughly in the previous presentation, but very briefly touching upon, we have got two separate labels. One in wherein the project activity meets the legal mandatory requirements. And when we talk about the legal mandatory requirements, we talk about what is required by law and what is required by certain standards. So for example, in ICVCM, there are certain environmental and social aspects which are mandatory for all project activities requesting CCP plus label, which means those aspects become mandatory and becomes part of EL and SL label, wherein we also give option to the project owners to see, and if they wish to seek higher labels which are beyond laws and regulations in the host country. And as a result of seeking these labels, we expect, since the project owners are demonstrating compliance to more stringent environmental and social requirements, this should ideally reflect in the price of the carbon credits which they eventually will generate from the project activities. Earlier there were only two labels, E plus label and S plus label in the project activity. There are provisions regarding the continual stakeholder engagement that are being introduced in version 4 of the standard. So these provisions were also there, stated across multiple documents such as the PSF template or the PMR template or the clarification 01. We have brought in everything together in version 4. And the idea here is that the project owner should consult the local stakeholders and the affected stakeholders during the design, implementation and operation of the project activity. We also have now provisions on post-registration changes. So wherein if there are any changes to the project design, such as let's say the increase in the capacity or the project owners, the project activity results in a change of process. So such things can be dealt under the post-registration change track. Now, what changes has occurred with regard to environmental and social compliance and safeguard? Depending on those changes, you can either choose to apply for prior approval track or the issuance track. Under the issuance track, you do not need to seek prior approval from GCC steering committee. You can directly incorporate these in your during your verification, submit as the updated documents, and that should be good. We have also got provisions on the renewal of crediting period. I think the key change there is that during the renewal of crediting period, you need to consider the latest available legal laws and regulations, as well as best international practices when you do the environmental and social safeguard assessment at the renewal of crediting period. One of the major changes that has happened in version 4 is that for reporting of the environmental social assessment and safeguards, we have introduced an Excel-based environmental and social impact assessment form, which means that now the project owners and the verifiers do not have to include these long tables within the PSF and PMR and the verification and the validation reports. You simply put up everything in an Excel file for your project activity. So the project owner will put in the information in the Excel file, the verifier will provide their opinion within the same Excel form, and then that Excel form will be submitted to GCC for further assessment and approval. Only the conclusions of the assessment that you have done in the Excel form has to be provided in the PSF, PMR or the validation and verification reports, which means that if there are, let's say, 10 environmental aspects, the assessment you do in the Excel file, and let's say after assessment you say that the project does not cause any harm to the environment, and we seek EBL label for the project activity, that's it. 2 statements you can include in the project documents. This will simplify the project documents and will also cut off a lot of effort that goes into this process at the end of the project owner, at the end of the validator and verifiers, and also at the end of GCC. Please note, there are separate forms for environmental social assessment for sector 1 to 13 and for sector 16, which is CCS. There will be another form, a separate form for sector 14 and 15 for AFLU, which will form a part of environmental and social safeguard standard for AFLU project and will be introduced at a later stage. I also mentioned it just to reiterate that the validator verifier can provide their opinion within the same Excel form and including and just including their conclusions and opinion within the validation and verification report. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was about the environmental and social safeguards standard. If there are questions, we would be happy to take at the end of this session. Now, moving on to the project sustainability standard, the story is almost similar. We updated the project sustainability standards to align GCC with the leading standards that are available in the market. This includes SDG impact standards for enterprises by UNDP, guidance on SDG impact standard by UNDP. There is a draft sustainable development tool from UNFCCC for Article 6.4 project activities. We also looked at how different global leading impact investors of the governments and the private bodies, how do they look at assessing SDG impacts when they invest in project activities globally. So all that knowledge and development that has happened in the SDG impact field, we have tried to bring in that knowledge in this latest version of the project sustainability standard. There were also a lot of comments coming in from stakeholders such as the project owners and the VVVs and our governing bodies. So those feedback are also being considered and included in the project sustainability standard version 4. Next slide, please. Now, if we look at a more micro level, you see that the scope of the SDG standard has expanded from sector 1 to 13 to also include AFLU and CCS. This was not the case in version 3.1 of the standard. One of the difference that I wanted to highlight compared to environmental and social standard with the project sustainability standard is that the sustainability standard also includes AFLU project activities, versus a new standard will be published, separate standard will be published for AFLU project activities on the environmental and social front. In terms of market eligibility, you can use this standard for getting C+ level for your project activity, CA+ for Article 6.2 and CCP+ level for ICVCM. And earlier it was only for CORSIA. In terms of approach, there is a minor change. I wouldn't classify it very significant, but the approach that we propose in the new standard is that we are asking project owners to not to start with SDG indicators and then try to randomly map that which are the project impacts that aligns with SDG. Rather, we have introduced a concept of theory of change, which is not mandatory. I will briefly touch upon theory of change in the next few slides. But the idea here remains that when the project activity is looking at quantifying the SDG impact, you start identifying what are the output, outcomes, and impact of the project activities, and then how do these align with the UN SDGs, the UN SDG targets or indicators or UN SDGs, and that will give you a better picture that how the project activity really contributes to the UN SDGs.
Mayank, let me request you to, if you can quickly wind up.
Yes.
Possible, in few, yes. Let's say in next 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure. In terms of impact, in the project sustainability standard, we ask you to focus on the positive impacts. Negative part, remember, are covered under the social, environmental, and social standards. In terms of SDG label, so the label remains same, bronze to diamond. For CORSIA, you require a minimum of silver label. For Article 6.2 and ICVCM, and for the VCM, you need a minimum of a bronze level for SDGs. There are now provisions on stakeholder engagement within the standard. There are provisions related to SDG washing, because we have seen in the sector a lot of innovations are happening on the environmental and the social credits as well. So let's say if as a project activity you have generated social credits, sold to a third party, and then you are also seeking SDG impact for the same credits, that's a clear double counting, and that has to be avoided in all the project activities. There are also provisions on post-registration changes and renewal of crediting period introduced within the standard. And lastly, we have introduced Excel-based form for SDG assessment as well, which means the project owners and validators and verifiers use the same form to assess the SDG contribution of the project activity. Also, VVVs can provide their opinions within the same form on the SDG impact assessment. Next slide, please. So we have also introduced some key principles. So there were a lot of differences, a lot of opinions coming in. What is an SDG impact? So we have introduced principles that what you can qualify as a SDG impact. So impact that is voluntarily directly occurring from the project activity on the local environment of the stakeholders, contributing positively to the local environment, stakeholders, and economy, are significant, which means not occurring one-off, but reoccurring across the lifetime of the project activities, are quantified and measurable, and if possible, consistent with the host country's priorities and the priorities of the local stakeholders. If the SDG impact has got these characteristics, you can apply for those SDG impact and demonstrate how do they contribute to different UN SDGs. Next slide. As I said, that there is a concept of theory of change. I wouldn't go into much detail because of the time, but the idea here remains that you do not jump to UN SDGs, rather try to identify what is the output of your project activity, what is the outcome, and what is the impact. Impact will always align with your UN SDGs. All you have to do is identify the output and outcome. Talking about a renewable energy project, your output would be clean energy electricity generated from the project activity. What would be the outcome? Outcome would be the immediate or short-term, medium-term gain that has happened, which is the reduction of the GHG emissions compared to the baseline. And what is the impact? Impact would be the climate change mitigation. So that sort of result chain should be developed for project activities. We haven't made it mandatory. It's voluntary for project owners to do this. All other standards in the market were doing it with different names in the name of causal chain or result chain. So the concept has always been there, and I think there's a good level of familiarity with this concept in the market. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to sum it up, in the environmental and social standard, let's say for example, it's a grid connected solar PV project. The negative parts you quantify under environmental and social impact standard. The positive aspects, the positive contributions you assess under the project sustainability standard. In the environmental social standard, we are not interested in understanding the magnitude of the impact. So we are not interested in what is the quantity of what is the magnitude of negative impact. We just wanted to know whether the negative impact is within the legal norms. If there are no legal norms, then is it under the international best practice? If not, then what are the mitigation measures to bring it under the law, legal limits, or under the international best practices? In case of sustainability standards, since you have to calculate the impact, there has to be a baseline, so there has to be a reference point against which you calculate your SDG impact. For example, for SDG 7, you would have a baseline which is great, and you have reduced the emissions because of the solar PV project. So then the reduction in GHG emissions makes you good enough for contributing to SDG 7. And then in both cases, you need ex post monitoring to actually claim labels under the environmental and social standard and under the project sustainability standard. Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you. Anam, over to you.
Thank you, Mayank. Okay, so at this point in time, we have one more presentation now, important presentation on what will the impact of all these GCC 2.0 on existing projects and on new projects. So we're going to talk about in a while. I will request Joseph at some point in time to request, but first I would request you to please open your camera so that we can take a picture. Anam is here with us to at least capture this moment. We have whopping 247 participants at this point in time, and earlier it was close to 275. So if you can open your cameras for a quick picture, we'll take series of pictures. Yeah, please open your cameras. Okay. Yes, please open the cameras. I can see some known faces. We have probably we have to take 16, 16 views out there. So we'll have to take it. So Anam, I will just quickly move the view. Can you take pictures? I quickly move.
Yes, sir, I'm taking.
Just,
Most of them.
Yeah. Okay, I'm moving. So Anam, let me know once you finish.
Just half a second more, then I'll just allow you, sir.
Okay.
Now it's done. Okay.
Yes, Shalini. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Anam, we're done?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're done.
So
We're good.
Excellent. So good. Now let me request Joseph. You have the floor, please.
Yeah, hi. I hope my slide is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I seeing a lot of questions coming up on this queries on the timeline, the transition, what will happen to existing project, what will happen to new projects. So means we really appreciate all your questions, eagerness, concerns. Some people would like to move immediately. Some people would like to see, wait and watch. So we kept all these things in mind while preparing this transition plan. So what I'll do is, without wasting time, let me take you through this. So before we dive into the transition plan, just want to highlight that, like, say, for instance, why someone has to go to 2.0, which was like shared by my colleagues in the previous presentation, that like why someone has to go for 2.0, what are the benefits as a project owner or as a verifier or a part of this the carbon market ecosystem, what benefits people get. So I'll just dwell upon a couple of minutes on that, and then, or rather, I'll put like this: benefits as well as to summarize what all our presenters have presented. So there has been, I mean, there are a lot of benefits if a project owner transits from 1.0 to 2.0. The major benefit is like the new project tracks which is available, like NBS carbon capture storage, that is only in 2.0. You have eligibility to three market eligibility labels compared to the one in 1.0. Now, if you transit to 2.0, there are 8 certification labels available compared to 3 in 1.0. The post-registration changes, where a lot of people ask for, like some modifications happened after registration, that is available in 2.0. Renewal of crediting period is available in 2.0. As Subhendu had mentioned, that the program process, more definitive timeline and binding timeline are available in 2.0. And another thing is on re-GSC in 1.0, it's like validation from submission of the project for GSC. Within 1 year, the validation has to be completed. In 2.0, it's 1.5 years. It's 1 year and 6 months. So apart from that, like you get a lot of other benefits, like I could see in a lot of queries coming on AREC. There is an access to AREC in 2.0, and so on and so forth with the new modern portal. So what happens? So this is the one I think the most people were anticipating the slide. Like we have kept a lot of things in mind, that like the process should be in smooth in nature. For project owners, for verifiers, for experts, and all involved in this entire ecosystem. So the onset of GCC 2.0 will be from 1st January 2025, and there will be a transition phase for 1 year, which will start from 1st January 2025 till 31st January 2025. And then the mandatory phase of 2.0 starts from 1st January 2026. So that means the project owner and verifiers and everyone has a time period of almost, if you account from today to plan themselves for almost 1 year and say 3 months or 3.5 months from now for this entire exercise to get completed. So we believe that this is a quite a bit time for any kind of such transitions. And what happens when this 2.0 really clicks on from 1st January 2025, which is on the transition phase. So first, the question rises to few people's mind, not few, many people's mind, that what happens as a project owner or as a verifier and verifying some project. So we have split the stages into different stages. What happens to the project which is a very new, fresh one? What happens the project is in the validation stage? What happens the project has been submitted under registration? What happens it has been submitted for registration, registered, and issuance is going to happen? So we split into various stages or phases. So let me start with the new project. Any new projects, when we say new projects, that means the projects which are yet to be submitted to GCC on or before 31st December 2024, and the project which will be submitted to GCC from 1st January 2025, where this 2.0 onset happens. Any new project, including the NBS track and the TR track. TR track is the track which is we call for the CCS related project. They have to apply 2.0 related regulatory documents. When we say related regulatory documents, it means program process, project standard, everything, forms, templates, everything will be according to 2.0. Any new project submitted from 1st January 2025. And the submission will happen on our new portal. As Shundu had mentioned, there will be a new portal, which is very highly technology-oriented portal with digitalized forms. So everything will happen on fresh and everything will happen on the new portal. So if you already have created some account in our existing portal, which we now term as old portal, that will be automatically migrated that's not an issue. So nothing needs to be done from your end on that. Okay, if the project is already submitted to GCC, it's been already submitted to GCC, means it's under not undergone global stakeholder consultation, that's GSC. It's under compliance check. It's undergoing compliance check, or many projects have, some of the projects have not paid fees, so it's not moved to the GSC stage. What happens with all these projects? If these projects would like to continue 1.0, they can do it till 31st December 2024. But however, if the projects remain the same stage, that is, they don't go to GSC or they don't start validation on or before 31st December 2024, this projects would be mandatorily moved to 2.0. I'm talking about the projects which are under compliance check or not gone with the GSC or not gone ahead with global stakeholder consultation. And this will be an again automatic process. So whatever details already there in the old portal will be migrated to the new portal from our backend. So this is for the new or existing projects, the new projects which are already spoken about, existing projects which are under the stage which is under compliance check before GSC. Okay, what happens to the projects which are under validation stage or RFR stage? So means nothing, and there'll be no change till 31st December 2024. When the GCC 2.0 starts on 1st January 2025, you'll have two options. One option is you continue means in your process and validation and or RFR stage in GCC 1.0. That means you stay in the old portal and you continue, complete your validation, you complete your registration, everything you do according to 1.0. So that means there is no requirement of applying GCC 2.0, program process, regulatory documents, no need to shift to GCC 2.0 new portal, or there is no need to carry out any kind of activities which involves transition. So you can continue, you can do everything, but however, you should note that this period would end on 31st December 2025 if the validation is not completed or registration doesn't happen during until that time, that is 31st December 2025. Then obviously when the mandatory phase starts, mandatory phase starts from 1st January 2026, then this projects will automatically move to 2.0 on a mandatory aspect. However, you have almost 1 year and 3.5 months from now to complete your validation or complete your RFR process or request registration process. However, if someone feels that not feels like many will say that I have a lot of benefits in 2.0, so why whether I can opt for 2.0? Yes. When the onset happens on 1st January 2025, you can opt for 2.0. Whether if you opt for 2.0 during validation stage or RFR stage, accordingly you need to update your documents according to the regulatory documents or forms and templates. The PSF would be getting updated if you're going to go for 2.0. Similarly, the project verification report, the verifier will update it accordingly, and the project will move to the new portal. Now there can be a few questions. Like say, already I have done GSC, whether I need to do re-GSC again? No, there's no required to do re-GSC. If you already GSC is completed for existing project, whichever stage validation RFR, whether I need to pay any additional fees for transition? No, there's no additional fee for transition under both the stages, validation and RFR stage. Whether I need to change any verifier? No, there's no requirement to change any verifier during this process. Existing verifier can continue. Yes, you need to go to the new portal, but nothing is required from your end. We will migrate everything to the new portal if you want to go for 2.0. And the starting point will be when in the program process we call DA1 detailed assessment and everything. Say for instance, the projects which is under RFR stage, which is already undergone say 3 rounds, 4 rounds. There's a cap in new program process 2.0 where you have only 3 chances or 3 iterations. Then what happens is means now they get additional 3 iterations irrespective of number of iterations they already carried out during 1.0. So this is the plan for the projects which are under validation as well as the RFR stage. Now, what happens for the project which is already registered or under issuance? So there also you have two options. One is the projects who would like to continue, a registered project would like to continue the issuance and everything according to 1.0 related documents and things. That's fine. It means when I see 1.0 related document means like the registered project will have a registered approved monitoring plan, approved SDGs, approved or verified SDGs or verified E plus S plus. So they'll continue with all these things. Only thing what happens is when they go for next issuance or a new issuance, whichever may applicable to them, then they obviously the issuance process, as Shundu had mentioned. Currently, if you see our port and the old portal, only the registration process is in the old portal, and issuance process one has to migrate to the S&P Global IHS Market website. So now what will happen is like in the new portal of GCC, you will have the registration issuance track both in the same portal. So you have to migrate into the our existing to the new portal. Whoever wants to go for 2.0 or don't want to go for 2.0, both. However, like if you see I mean, they have to, when they go for issuance process, they will have to fill the documents account to 2.0. But however, many things may not be applicable since they have already registered the project account to 1.0 with respect to the E plus S plus or SDG or all these things, so that they can always mark it as not applicable. Our team will take care of it. That's not an issue. But however, if someone wants to shift to 2.0 after registration, the only way they can do it is like through PRC, post registration changes. So the post registration changes details are provided in our project standard. We request you to go through it, and yes, there will be an additional fee for the PRC. So this is all about this, and short and sweet. Our transition plan document would be put up very soon in the website. And hopefully we'll have a smooth transition. Yes, as you know that like any kind of such transformation would face some related issues, sometimes some IT related issues, sometimes administration related issues. You have been backing up with us and been with us for the long journey for the last 4 years, 5 years. We'll anticipate the same support you will provide to us for this transformation also. And our IT team, our administration team, our operations team would be always be available for supporting any kind of issues which arise during transition. However, like certain aspects is out of our control, where we request your understanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph, for this very important presentation. I would now request for any questions now. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. You can raise your electronic hand, or you can email it on the communication@globalcarboncouncil.com. So please, there's an opportunity for any questions. The presentations and the video recording of this session will be made publicly available on our website. So you will soon you can soon access this these. So now let me request. I can't see any hands. So if there is any hand,
Amit, I'll just one input to all the stakeholders.
yes.
As Joseph said, that we are migrating accounts to the new portal. You might receive emails asking you to log into the new portal and update your password into that, because we have already started migrating. So don't be alarmed. That is only because your accounts are now getting populated also onto the new portal. Okay. So we will come out with a separate announcement on that, but you will get such mails asking you to log in, because we will move your accounts to the new portal. You will receive an email asking you to reset your password on the new portal. So please expect that.
Thank you. So I already see two hands, but before I give the hands, I think there are some questions in the chat box. There's a question whether there will be any change in the fee. Right now we are trying to look at our fee schedule, and in case there are any changes, we'll publish it on the website. But clearly, for cases where corresponding adjustment have to be applied as per option 2, there is an enhanced risk in those, and we expect that the price of those corresponding adjusted credits will be higher. So obviously, since we have a higher risk, there is an additional effort also to look at this, but also looking at the evaluation of verification report for verification of corresponding adjustments, and also other processes, PRC, but so on and so forth. It's likely that there would be changes, but we'll keep you updated on this. So how can the request for transition be raised? So after 1 January, we plan to allow this from 1 January 2025. For transition process, we have set up a post-registration change process. The post-registration change process in the project standard, and also in the program process, I would encourage you to go through this. It allows the possibility for you to submit changes in the registered project documentation, registered PSF, and to also allow the verifier to validate this. And then this new validated PSF and the verification report will supersede the existing PSF, registered PSF. Okay, I think probably we have answered almost every question that was raised earlier, but in case I have missed some of them, Joseph, Subhendu, will you try to look at those, and or Mayank, in case we have missed it out? Is there any update in demonstration of additionality? Right now, we have not touched additionality, but as you know, Article 6.4 is currently reviewing this. We don't know what will come out of this. So we are is a kind of a approach we are taking, is watching as of now. However, ICVCM has some concerns on renewable energy projects with regard to additionality and other parameters. We are thinking and we are internally discussing that there should be a possibility of having a new additionality tool, which will allow project owners to also comply with the CCP label or ICVCM in case they wish. Right now, there are too many standards, too many labels in the market. We have tried to consolidate everything together as a single window thing. The project owners have a flexibility to choose whatever they want, whatever they wish, whatever they think is useful for them. Okay.
Just one thing,
actually, there was a question earlier, like it is on the buffer pool. The question goes like this: what about the buffer pool gets exhausted? What is the future ongoing for those credits for option 2?
Okay, so I think the point is this: when we submit application to CORSIA, the CORSIA requested us that once you issue credits, they should be always correspondingly adjusted. And therefore, the option was to have such requirements like other two standards which have already been approved for phase 1 of CORSIA. They have said so. However, we all know that we are not yet at that stage. It will take next 2 or 3 years to reach for countries to issue letter of authorization for keeping accounting on the corresponding adjustment and so on and so forth. So we're still far away from this. So therefore, we took a chance. We introduced this additional element for corresponding adjustments with option 1 and option 2, because that allows you to participate in the market, even though which would otherwise have taken next 2 or 3 years. So by the time the market or the negotiations become very clear on this, by that time the projects might move ahead in the validation process and verification process. So I think that was the purpose, and my view is this, that under option 1, the credits will be issued, but the accounts will be blocked. So they will not enter the market. It's like, you keep goods in the showroom. People can watch them from the window, but the door is locked. You cannot go inside the showroom. However, option 2 allows the possibility that there will be a buffer deduction, and buffer deduction will allow us to take the risk on our side to a limited extent, but also that project developers take that risk. In case the country withdraws the letter of authorization or revokes it, or do not apply corresponding adjustment within 3 years of time. So there is a requirement for project owners to cover that liability, to replace those credits in case that happens. Some of those credits would be compensated from the buffer account, limited to the contribution that the project has made. While if there's still a shortfall, the project owners will have to compensate or buy it from the market, or to cancel it in the registry. Okay, I think yeah.
So another question was like, if in case of opting option 2 for HCLA, it's still required to be provided at the registration stage.
For option 1 or option 2, it's independent of this. If you are applying for CORSIA first phase, or if you want Article 6.2, host country letter of authorization is required at issuance. If you can provide it earlier, then you don't need letter of intent from host country. Okay.
Okay.
I
There's
could see a
one
couple of
on E
questions.
plus.
Yeah.
On Tushar had a question. Since ELSL label is mandatory, is there a possibility to combine it with the new upcoming additionality tool? I don't know what is additionality tool with E plus ELSL. ELSL is mandatory, yes, because any project has to demonstrate compliance with legal requirements. Unless demonstrated, I think we didn't reiterate, but the fact is, what happens if you don't get ELSL? You don't get the project registered, and if you get registered, you don't get issuance for that monitoring period if you cannot demonstrate ELSL. The other says GSC period as a whole will be 2 times, one during RFS submission and once at the first verification, RFI. Yes, it is twice, once at the start of validation and once during the first verification. Is 15 days as previous initial submitted still continues? It's 30 days period now for both.
Okay, good, excellent. Are there any other questions which probably we have missed out? I think Borga probably had a question.
Yeah, there's a question. Will the time of GCC to respond to CC, etc., be improved soon? I know you have presented a plan, but we have, and many stakeholders are concerned with the long waiting time and the project getting stuck. I will be glad if this is answered for both V1 and V2. Currently, for instance, we have a project's waiting review for more than 1 month. Regards. Yes, so that's the objective of having definitive timelines. So once you go to the project program process, you will see each of these activities have a defined timeline, not only for GCC to be able to respond to, carry out a detailed assessment and give out if there are any comments, but also for the verifiers to respond back to those comments with a definitive timeline. So each of these stages will have timelines that has to be adhered to. So that's the purpose of V 2.0. 1, we don't have any timeline still with 1.0, but then 1.0 would only continue up to December 25. Beyond that, if it's not registered, it will move to 2.0.
Yes.
And I think there's a question here from Sukanta on GSC process.
Yeah,
maybe
I think that was responded. That was responded.
Yeah.
This was responded. So I think just one thing I just want to touch upon. So for me to tell you what there are advantages and disadvantages of going and transferring to GCC 2.0, which the decisions on this has to be made by the project owner itself. We have made all the information available, but I think to summarize very quickly, I think there are 3 or 4 key points to this, or key advantages. Number 1 is that we have for 4.2, for the ownership of credits, we have allowed 3 representatives to to be allowed to reflect in the letter of authorization. So what it means is then this move will reduce the possibility to spend on the transfer fee, because it will save you transfer fee, which otherwise you would have to which the project owners would anyway would have to pay to the GCC program. So as an example, if a project has 100,000 credits and you are in first case, I would say transferring it twice, so you will have to spend 4 cents for on 100,000 credits twice, or to send it to different project owners. And then if you opt for GCC 2.0, you can include 2 additional registered companies to be part of this, and this will allow you to upfront seek a buyer, an investor, a financer for the seed capital, all coming together, having a process of transparency and trust, which will enhance this whole process and will help in scaling up this whole process and save you. So our initial estimate was about $40,000 probably on 100,000 credits would probably be saved as a consequence of this. I think it's a business decision, economic decision for you to look at this aspect. I think this was one thing. The second thing was that it allows you to shift your crediting period, from fixed crediting period to renewable crediting period. So we have allowed that possibility. Only A2 type projects cannot have renewable crediting period. Their crediting period is fixed. However, new projects or old projects other than renewable energy or other than A2 type projects, A2 type projects can shift to renewable crediting period of 5 years fixed or 10 years fixed or 5 years into 3 times renewable. And then there were also other advantages is that you can definitely move into the new regime where you have the possibility to get qualified under CORSIA first phase. There was a publication from ITA which looked at a demand of close to 164 million CORSIA first phase credits to be to be used by or to be demanded by the airlines. So I think there is that demand that's coming up from there, of course, because they are corresponding adjusted credits, their price would also be high. So you have the possibility to go and participate in this, or if you want to go into ICVCM, or if you want to still, contribute to the compliance with the NDC of countries by having Article 6.2 compliant credits, I think you have a possibility. So in short, there are some clear advantages on moving to Article 6. Or GCC 2.0. But of course, there's a level of effort. There will be some level of effort. There will be some additional information to be provided, which in my understanding, for a project that has post-recent change, would anyway have to go to PR, would have to go through the PRC, and that has to move towards the GCC 2.0. So it would be an opportunity, in my understanding. If I was a project developer, I would probably also apply for other labels. Of course, you have to see whether or not the host country letter would be provided or would come or not, and there are a lot of things that go around this. Okay, I think there are a few other questions. Probably, what are the types of NBS projects? I don't know if Wojtek is here. Probably he would clarify it. So if Wojtek, you are here, probably you can clarify it. There are other questions. What is this?
No,
yeah.
What means like I can just read out from the project standard. It's very clear that you can refer to our page number 43 of project standard, which gives the eligibility of activity under AFLO, which gives all types of projects under AFLO which is eligible. You can refer to that. We will type for you for convenience.
Yeah. Also, let me give the floor to Amir Sharaf, who is requested for hand. So Mr. Amir, you have the floor. And if there are other people that want to ask question, please raise your hand now. And we'll stop, responding to the questions for some time in the chat.
Good evening,
Amir.
everybody. Do you have my voice clear?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Please go on.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. It was really helpful and clarifying for a lot of change to the 2.0 projects. I was wondering, we have a lot of projects in Iran working on the regulatory on the flare reduction program. I was wondering, is there a new methodology developing for the for example, refineries and other oil companies, or the methodologies are the same as the 1.0 projects?
So I think if you have gas flaring, you can apply AM9 from CDM. Yeah, associated for the associated gas here. And if you have LDR gas leakage from the pipeline and you want to prevent it, I think there are also, I think, AM27, 23, AM23 methodology probably, and there are other methodologies. But if you want more information on the methodologies, what could be applicable, please write us an email on communications@globalcarboncouncil.com, and our stakeholder team probably would come back to you on this.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Please raise your hands or type in the chat. Let me see if there are any questions. Probably okay. There's one question from Hemant. For ERIC, we have to make compliance with the requirements of GCC 2.0. In short, projects going under 2.0 can either opt for GCC credits or ERIC. Correct. I think you have to go to transition to 2.0 in case you want to take that advantage of ERIC, or you have a choice to whether or not to go for ACCs or go for ERICs. That depends on the price situation in the market. Okay, there was one question. I don't know, from Dirity. It was previously registered projects has fixed crediting period, whereas now we have renewal as well. So is there I think I answered that possibility. For yes, you can renew crediting period. There's a procedure in the program process, if you can refer to it. However, A2 type projects cannot cannot move from fixed crediting period of 10 years to renewal crediting period. Okay, there are a few other questions. Will the additionality criteria for ERIC and ACCs be the same? Yes, I think as of now, the additionality tool is applicable if the methodology is required so. So I think it will undergo the same process. Yeah. What will be the main motivation to convince project owners long-awaited projects for the transition? I think I already answered that. There are 3 or 4 advantages. You save transaction costs. You have possibility to move towards renewal crediting period. You can take advantage of different labels and make your projects eligible for different regimes. Probably correspondingly adjusted credits will be priced at a higher price. Obviously, there are talks currently. I heard about $30, $40, $50 on correspondingly adjusted credits. So I think there is it provides you a lot of flexibility. We are not pushing you towards this. If you want to transition to 2.0, you can, but if you want to continue with 1.0, I think you have a possibility. But you have a disadvantage, obviously. You will not go into new markets, you will not enter the new markets, you will not have price advantage, transfer price advantage. Okay. Will registered projects be able to issue both ERIC and I think we answered it. This was from Neha.
I think there's one question on additionality criteria will be same for ERIC and ACCs.
Yeah, I already answered it. Yes. Okay, so any other question? I think we extended by half an hour, but I think probably it's worth the time spent, because there are many questions in the chat that we almost answered everything. But if in case there is something remaining, you can still write to us on Global Carbon Council, communications@globalcarboncouncil.com. And can you just type the email once again in the chat window, please? And we'll respond to you. So I do not see any other hands from you all at this point in time. So with this, I would like to thank all of you. But I would like to remind you that this documents are on public consultation for 15 days. For the earliest document was submitted on 9th of September. So it will end probably on 23 or 24th. But there are other documents being submitted continuously. So please go to them, submit comments. Your involvement and your comments and feedback is really valuable at this point in time, because we can look at it and we can reflect on this and we can propose to the regulatory committee accordingly. So with this, I would like to thank you. But there is one last question from Karan. Can we change the projects to 2.0, which are under request for registration, yet to submit request for registration without any additional fee? We are yet
No,
to
he's
decide
talking about
on.
he's
Sorry,
talking about transition fee, sir. There is no transition fee for
there's no
1.0
transaction
to
fee,
2.0.
but there may
Yeah.
be fee on probably post-registration change process, which we are yet
No,
to decide on this. But
no, he is
as we
talking about
know,
RFR stage. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
But as we know, at this point in time, we still have about more than 3 months, to kind of operationalize this whole thing. There are documents currently available for stakeholder consultation. We will reflect upon the comments that we receive and then revise the documents, bring it before the regulatory committee again, and finally publish them. So you have a possibility to will be there for I would say by the end of this year the documents would be finalized, hopefully, because we have to synchronize the finalization of documents together with the availability of new IT platform, and then yeah, we can come up with a final date, but as of now it seems like 1 January 2025 would be the date when we will operationalize to GCC 2.0. Okay, I think excellent. But before I close, we'll be having attendance in COP29 in Baku. We will have our pavilion there in Blue Zone. We would request you to please join us. Please visit our pavilion. And if there are any questions, any queries that you would like to have with our team, we would enable help desks during this period. We will be there from 11 till the end of COP. So yeah, I would encourage you to engage with us at that point in time. So thank you very much, and I wish you a great day today. Thank you. Bye bye.